Oh, whoops. There, that's the right screen. Hello! Happy Monday! Happy magical Monday! How is everyone doing? I hope you all had nice, restful weekends. I hope there was not too many fireworks, just being annoying. Unfortunately, they are, in fact, still happening here, and all of my wires are all... How did this happen? My wires are all crossed. I did come back from my trip to Ohio... Oh god, sorry, I can't think and apparently try to undo wires at the same time. I did come back from my trip to Ohio to find that apparently, little Silas has adopted my desk as his new safety zone, which I'm glad he has. However, I wish it was not my desk, and I wish he would leave his little pawsies off all of my things. But what can one do? What can one do? Suka! Hello! Hello, hello! Oh, I started later than I wanted to today. How's my trip? It was... God, it was such mixed feelings. It was good. It was good, but my grandmother has really declined a lot since the last time I saw her. And, like, I had been hearing that, but, like, actually seeing her, like, compared to the last time I saw her, it was a lot. But I got to see her every single day, and I got to see my other family up there, so it was really nice. And I don't know, I'm just glad I got to spend more time with her. So it was good. I am now exhausted, though, from trying to play catch-up. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. No one else is here yet, so we can keep going. Oh wait, hold on. Oh wait, hold on. Oh wait, hold on. Let me just switch screens. Hold on, hold on. Oh, okay. Sorry, I just heard back from Lio Min. It sounds like we're gonna start half an hour later, which actually kind of works, because I was running behind. Let me reply to her, them. Let me reply to them very quickly. Hold on. Hold on. Doxing your email right there. Been a bit since we had you dox yourself. I know, I know. I mean, this is my, like, official Drowsy Crow email, though, so I feel like I didn't really dox anything that's not publicly available. Because I do think I mean, it's just drowsycrow@gmail.com. Like, it's not that, impressive. Or hard to guess. So if anyone wanted to, I mean, that's my email. Oh crap, all my toggles are going because I'm typing with... Oh god, oh god. God, which ones are these? Nope. Okay, okay, there we go, there we go. Meanwhile, Silas is just observing. Okay. Okie dokie. But yeah, it really has been a while since I doxed myself. I did so well with that for so long. For so long. I wonder if we have enough time for a little... Let's just do a little party animals. We'll see if any of the dailies are easy to get in on. Easy to get in. Fast. Fast to get in. Okay, so we are going to delay by 30 minutes, so we will be starting Talk Story to Me at 7:30 today. Sorry, I've been so all over the place. It's... Of course, party animals. What else do I have that you could potentially do in, like, 15 minutes, though? Also, come on, there's a Cthulhu pass on. I want it. I want all of the Cthulhu skins. Just yap? What would I yap about? How overwhelmed and exhausted I am and have been? I don't think anyone wants to hear me yap about that, but it's all I've been thinking about all day. Silas, no! No claws on the screen, Silas. No. Yeah, it's been a lot. I had so much fun during the charity event, but I was on for like a full 3 days, and then pretty much immediately, then I went to Ohio, and I was worried about my grandma, and whether or not this would be the last time I'd get to see her, and just every day was full, and then I got back last night, and today was catching up on work that I missed out on because I took all last week, well, not all last week, because I took a good chunk of last week off, so it was playing catch up and dealing with tech issues, and I'm just tired, man. I'm just tired. I wanted to think that I would be down to do our raffles after our author interview tonight, but I think that might have to wait. That might have to wait. And this week still is like so packed full. I have to go into the office Wednesday, Thursday. I have a doctor's appointment Wednesday. I have to take 2 out of 3 of my kitty cats to the vet on Friday. I want everything to stop for like 5 minutes. Anyways, I'm going to lurk for now. Lurk away! Lurk away! When's the raffle draws happening? I'm thinking Wednesday. I really wanted it to be today, but I'm just so exhausted from the trip and everything leading up to it. Like, it's been nonstop for the last, like, 2 weeks. Tonight will probably be a shorter stream. Alright. I don't know if I can do any of these real quick. I'm also just tired. You're always tired? I know, but this has been, like, exceptionally tired. I'm normally sleepy. I'm exhausted. Tried to be there. I did put $5 in for the raffle, so why not? Yeah! You should join us. Just since today's later start time because of the time zones, because Lio Min lives on the West Coast, so they're 3 hours behind us. So just kind of like between the late start and how exhausted I feel, I don't think the raffles will be tonight. But they will be Wednesday because I feel awful that I've made everyone wait this long for them already. It is going to happen. I've just been juggling a lot. And I want to make it fun. Anyways, lurkies. Yeah, no worries. No worries. Oh, I don't want to do infection. Why is that the most points? We do plant eating in one game. I believe in us and our ability. I mean, I guess there's potential that... Wait, what was it again? Fuck, I can't... God, I can't keep a single thought in this head for more than 5 seconds. Plant eating, 1 game. Don't want to do that. I think I have enough time. If not, I will leave mid-game. But that's okay, because it's just the 3 of us here right now. What was it? Plant eating in 1 game? Plant eating. Plant eating. Oh crap. Oh crap, I didn't need to hit smash because that's gonna take longer. Oh crow. Oh. I'm failing. I'm failing. I don't know. My head is in a weird brain space. I don't know if I'm doing okay, but you know what? We're here. We're trucking through. And I hope people come for our author interview because they're amazing and I love their book so much. And they've been so, so kind. I want. Also, all of my wires are still... Hold on, let me take off my headphones so I can actually fix this. While I'm waiting, might as well. Oh, okay. Got it. Just in time. Nope, I fucked something up right at the end. That's okay. It's fine. When you level up later in the week, your health will regenerate and you'll be back in tip-top shape. When I level up later in the week? What does that mean? What am I doing that will make me level up? How did I somehow make this worse? It was better, and then I did something, and now I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna have to sort that out later. I can't. No, I can't. It's too hard. It's my mic. So not my mic. Well, partly my mic. Okay, there we go. Finally. What constitutes as plant eating? Oh god, I don't know. Capybara must be plant eating, right? Here. Well, this is a unique kind of author interview. So we did hear from the author, and we're pushing back about 30 minutes. So at 7:30 EST, we will begin the author interview. Oh, crow. Why are you crowing me? Oh, shit, that's right. I am leveling up this week, aren't I? Fuck, there's been so much going on. I forgot my birthday is also this week. There's just too much shit happening, man. I just want a break. I guess I should figure out if I'm doing something. Oh no! Why did my teammate just... Oh, there I went. Okay, well. The fact that I remembered when you didn't, that's because you're a good friend, Arg. Also, hi, Freya! I needed something to do for like 10 minutes, and I figured this was like a good... We can get, potentially maybe one of the dailies for the Cthulhu Pass. Listen, I need all of the cute Cthulhu skins. Oh god. Yeah. I still don't know who this cat on the ring is supposed to be. Oh my god, I got hella flung. Yeah, I would have been shocked if I made it back from that. Arg's good with the numbers. He knows them numbers. You're too good. He is. He is. I remember Arg's birthday, October 30th. It's very easy to remember because it's the day before Halloween. And my mom's is the day after Halloween. Hers is November 1st. Silas continues to paw at the monitor, thinking it is something that he can grab. Hello, Baby Bean. Isn't the cat on the arena meant to be Garfield? Is it supposed to be Garfield, though? Because it doesn't really look like Garfield. Like, I know there's a bunch of play on, like, existing IPs, but I couldn't tell if this was meant to be Garfield or not. I just punched that doggo right off. Well, it's literally called the Ring of Garfat. I know it's called the Ring of Garfat, but I wasn't sure if that was referring to something other than Garfield. I'm dead again. Because he doesn't, like, the face doesn't look like Garfield at all. Oh, my teammate's down. Mine is a good day for it. Got to tell people on Halloween it was my birthday the day before and got double the candy. My sisters hated me. Listen, you gotta make use of what you can, especially as a kid. Silas is being so cute. Oh. Hello, baby bean. Have we calmed down now? Today is such a weird day. I did go for a run, though. I grew up with a horrible family. I'm used to it. Damn, who didn't, though? I want these guys to just... I want someone to win so that I can end this and get my daily. I also went on a run. I ran away from my problems. Wow, big mood! I guess I went on 2 runs today, then. One, the physical. The other, the I would like to run away from this reality that we live in. Oh, oh, except for you, Silas. You make this life worth living. Oh. He has clambered back onto the disc. God, how long are these 3 gonna go? Classic was too long. I was hoping we would get a short map. I think at like 7:25, so like 10 more minutes, I will call it and actually introduce what we'll be doing today, which is interviewing the author and poet Lio Min. They are absolutely incredible, and they've been so kind over email. God, stop edgeguarding me! You! I died from freaking damage. Ah! Well, while I'm dead. Our guest author today is going to be Lio Min. They are absolutely incredible. They are an author and poet. I highly recommend checking out their poetry. I don't know how much I'll be discussing it tonight, just because I'm not good at talking about poetry. So that'd be hard. Have you had the interview? Not yet, not yet. So we did push the interview. So we heard from our guest author, and they requested to push back the interview by like 30 minutes. So we will start in about 10 or 13 more minutes. I'm kind of just killing time until then because I am exhausted, so I must be doing something or else I will lose it. They're so cool. Sorry, they replied to my email just saying, yeah, all good. They're so cool, man. They're so cool. We've gotten so lucky with having just, like, the coolest, chillest guest authors come on. And all of them have been so kind. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to them. They are the author of Beating Heart Baby, as well as the upcoming The Love Club. I think it's pronounced The Love Club, because it's written L, like, period, O, period, V, period, E, period. But I imagine it's pronounced The Love Club. And not, what? The L.O.V.E. Club? But that is upcoming in fall, and I want it! I need it! I need it. But because that has not come out yet, we'll ask them about their upcoming release, but we'll probably mostly be focusing on their very, very good book, Beating Heart Baby, for most of the interview. It is so good, and I'm so excited. I really hope Yellow wins so that they are only one win away from victory. Also, so this will end. Okay, good. Okay, I'm actively cheering for Yellow to win. I forget how... God, I've played so many games in between. So I've been playing Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, like just... Not a lot, but like on the plane and at night when I just need some alone downtime from... As much as I love my family. From my family. There went my teammate. Oh god, that's on me. So I've been playing some of that, and then also Elden Ring, so the controls are, like, not in it with me. Ah! Go blue team, you got this. Blue team? Why would we want blue team to win? When yellow team winning will end this so much faster. No, green. Get out, get out. Yellow team, truce! So that you can win. Listen, all I had to do was play as a plant-eating animal in one game. I didn't have to win. Oh, I thought I got knocked out. I was like, how did that even happen? No. Wait. I was gonna team up with yellow team. I died. It's not as fun when you're not playing with friends. Like, I don't get as invested. Oh no, yellow team, no! Come on, yellow! You can win this, you can end it! You can end all of our suffering! That might have taken the bat out. Oh! Oh! Oh, he's not in the lava. Knock it! Throw it! Why didn't you throw it to the guy coming up? Oh, oh. Huck him! Huck him! Oh, heck yes! Okay, it's done now. No! Okay, now it's definitely done. Woo! Okay. I'll switch over back to our interview screen. Because I can chat and yap for 9 minutes. When we were facing, like... I don't know, like 20 minutes. I wasn't sure about my ability to yap for 20 minutes, but... this is fine. Oh! I leveled up in the Cthulhu PS. Oh, I got a little pirate hat frame. So excited about losing. I am struggling. I'm debating if I want to attempt doing either of these after the interview. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. I do think doing the interview will give me energy, though, because I love the interview so, so much. A capybara counts as an animal that can dive? To hit players 60 times, and I somehow did that 40. Okay, okay. Alright, well, let's get out of this. And get... Silas is so cute. He's sitting dead in front of my monitor, just watching everything. It's so stinking cute. Inception. Okay. This is where this will eventually be. Alright. Yeah, sorry, I've been literally all over the place. I'm just struggling. If tonight was not Talk Story to me, and if I was not so excited about this author interview, I probably would not have streamed tonight, but I am so excited about this author interview. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I'll wait to do the official proper intro right before we start, because that part will be in the podcast. Crow, capybaras have webbed toes and can hold their breath underwater like several times that of humans. They can totally dive. I guess they're just not what I think about. Like, I guess when I hear dive, I think of, like, winged creatures, like skydiving, like eagles or crows. I don't know. I think of birds. I think of birds when I think of diving. Because, like, I know sharks and, like, the gator and stuff count too, but I don't think of it as, like, water related. I think of it in terms of, like, air diving. I mean, a moose can also dive. See, that's the thing, though. I feel like most things can dive into water, but not everything can skydive. Hence, you see my conundrum. Let's do just chatting for now. Let's do this screen until it's a little closer to time. The underwater plants. Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Trying to remember. I think I have those turned off for the Talk Story to me. Yes. I think I do. Okay. Just want to make sure we're not getting any sound redeems in the middle of the interview. But hi, Phoenix! Love our good squeakette squeaks. So basically we're just waiting a couple minutes for the interview start time. I guess I could be posting on Twitter about this, but I hate Twitter. Man, I feel like one of the hardest things about, like, streaming is, like, using social media, because, like, I don't do that. I don't enjoy doing it, so I don't think about doing it, and then when I do think of doing it, I'm always like, but I don't wanna go into the cesspool that is Twitter. And Blue Sky seems nice, but I'm just, like, I'm not on social media at all in general, so it's hard to, like, remember or be in the habit of, like, using any of them. Although I have unfortunately been on Twitter binges lately. Just doom scrolling. But also seeing very cute cat pictures and videos, which is the most important part. Need Squeakette stream one day? Well, there will be a permanent cat cam. Silas has stepped on my keyboard. Come, my baby. Let's not turn all of the toggles on. There will be a cat's cam. I still have to figure out the logistics of how I'm going to get that to work, because it's not as if they hang out in, like, one particular spot. So I'm still working on the logistics of how I'm gonna do that. But Squeakette has been so mean to the baby. He's got a scratch right across his nose. It's so sad, because he's, like, the baby is so sweet. He's just a little guy. He's so nice. He'd never hurt anyone. But then Squeakette just scratches him and chases him and intimidates him, and it's so mean. It's so mean. Why are they like this? Why? Why can't Squeakette just be nice and accept her new baby brother? Why? Why? But if you have not... But if you have not been here for a Talk Story to Me section before, it is basically a live stream segment that I do maybe once every couple of months. Oh yeah! Oh! Thank you, Ark. You are so good and helpful and good at being mod. But yeah, I invite authors on. We talk about their books and their writing, their publication journey, and just, like, anything that comes up. Anything fun. Oh, Silas has left. Oh, he's going to go play with his big brother. God. I had to separate Silas and Toru while I was out on my trip. So I left Silas and Milo together for some brotherly bonding time because they love each other and they're so cute. So Toru was the one who was on her own, and I am hoping that this helped their brotherly relationship just really develop. God, they're so cute. They're both under my desk now. Oh, Toru's down there. Oh no, that's Silas. Okay. All I saw were some white paws, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay, we are 1 minute out, so I think it's probably okay to start doing like the official everything. So let me go ahead. Hold on, let me rearrange a couple of things if I can. Okay, let's see if that. Okay. Whew. Okay. I always get so nervous about these, and especially now that I've been in such a headspace all day, I'm like really struggling to rein it in. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of Talk Story to Me, the live stream segment where I invite guest authors on and we ask them about their books, writing process, publication journey, and anything that comes up. Chatters or guest viewers are welcome to ask questions live throughout the interview as long as they're respectful, which I'm not worried with you guys, but I feel like I have to say just as a disclaimer. Um, and yeah, we just talk about all the things, all the writing things, all the authorly things. So tonight's guest is going to be the absolutely amazing author and poet Lio Min, author of Beating Heart Baby and the upcoming, I don't know if it's the Love Club or the L.O.V.E. Club, but that. See, this is the one singular problem with reading when you read something one way in your head, but you don't actually know how it's pronounced. I lived my entire life thinking debris was pronounced debris. Uh, facade was wait, facade was facade. So yeah. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited. Beating Heart Baby is just such a good book. It's I love all of the emotional journey throughout it, and I don't know, the characters just feel so real. So I'm so excited to talk about this book and hear more about the process behind it. All right. It looks like our guest author is in our call, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over and we'll say hi to them. Hello!
Hello.
Hi!
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Let me just make sure I don't have any other stuff going on. Okay, cool. Sorry, 1 second. How do
Yeah.
I do this
No worries. I'm
again?
constantly breaking technology just by looking at it, so you're all good.
Yeah, I'm just like, I just want to make sure that no notifications come up for one of the other tabs. So I know there's a mute option, and there we go. Okay. Hi.
Hi! It is so nice to be able to virtually meet you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have the chance to speak. July really came up a lot faster than I think I was personally ready for. So I was like, oh, it's already time, 777. But yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Somehow June just flew by and July crept up out of nowhere.
Yeah, but it be how it be. How are you, all things considered?
Doing pretty well. Thank you so much for asking. That's really sweet. Uh, how about you? I hope it's not too hot for you.
It's okay. It's the Bay Area is pretty temperate, and I think the bigger thing has just been that I've been in kind of dungeon mode for a little bit, so I haven't even been outside that often. But this is, it's nice to be out of it and be in the nice temperate weather now. We escaped the heat dome that I think most people got caught in a couple of weeks ago now.
Oh,
So
lucky.
lucky break. Yeah.
I live
Yeah.
in I live in Florida, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the humidity has been a lot.
Yeah. I have folks in Florida or like, family, friends, etc. And they've just been like, yeah, you just kind of have to stay inside or try to get into the water. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
But we're all so excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for making the time to come on and talk with us about your writing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm chuffed that y'all are asking, so happy to answer questions. Yeah.
Yeah, would you like to start by introducing yourself and kind of giving us a general overview of your writing for anyone in chat who might not be as familiar with you?
Yeah. So my name is Leo, Leo Min. I started writing actually from I started writing not in fiction at all. I was a music journalist, culture writer for about a decade, all pretty much through college into my 20s, going, yeah, just freelancing and doing a lot of interviews and stuff like that. And eventually, as many of us who do these kinds of freelance creative gigs knows, I had to figure out some sort of stable day job situation. And I started working, among other things, at a summer camp for kids in in my area. And it was during this time that I started to kind of just like watch the kids and notice that they were going through a lot of like they were going through these developmental stages in real time in front of me, and I was kind of seeing the ways in which the world broadly was already starting to work on them. I was working mostly with 4 to 6 year olds, so it was a very interesting time to be present to the development of not just the individuals but also kind of the group dynamics of kids. And I was thinking a lot about the music writing that I had been doing. And one of the things that I was noticing was that I was talking to a lot of these musicians who were kind of on these turning points in their careers. And they were asking themselves these questions about the changing nature of musicianship, artistry, how to put yourself on like online and out there in the world outside of just releasing music. And just having performances say speak for themselves. And all this is a very long way of saying that it was through this confluence of influences that I started writing my first book, Beating Heart Baby, which is a young adult coming of age narrative about two artists who work their way through their relationships to art and creativity, as well as their relationships toward each other. The story centers on two boys, Santi and Sua, in Los Angeles, where Santi is a visual artist who is kind of struggling to find his place in the world and doesn't really know how to hold on to relationships and doesn't really know how to hold on to a stable sense of self. And Sua is someone that he meets early on in the book who is in a lot of ways the exact opposite of Santi in that he does know who he is, what he wants to be about, but he's actually afraid to step into the role that he thinks the world has carved out for him, which both is and isn't a quote unquote legitimate fear of his. Um, and so that was my journey into writing books, where it was something that came out of just having these conversations with myself, watching these kids being like, um, for most people who have maybe come of age over the past decade, I would say broadly, there's probably a little bit of wiggle room there. We are watching kind of in real time the ask between art and artist changing a lot, where it's not perhaps enough to just create art that talks about your personhood and alludes to personal details or alludes to kind of like that diaristic confessional aspect of art that is, to be clear, always been present. But now there's also that added aspect of performing your identity, your art on another level. Um, so yeah, that was what Beating Heart Baby was about, and it's I think it's a very interesting book as well because it talks a lot about the different types of relationships and relationship building that can happen specifically in the digital world. And that was a space that I grew up in as a kid. I'm still uh, online these days, maybe not as much.
Who
Uh,
isn't, though?
yeah. So yeah, so part of it too is just talking about the fact that like I think it's pretty clear at this point that the idea of like having an internet friend is not something that is lesser than or is not as powerful as quote unquote like an IRL friendship. And so Beating Heart Baby and to some extent my second book, The Love Club, are talking about the differences between the types of identities that you're allowed to live out, say online or say outside of your real world space, versus the types of relationships and the types of patterns that you can fall into when you are just dealing with people that you are seeing all the time in your real life and adapting yourself to survive in that world. So yeah, that was a very long, circuitous.
No, I was just admiring how eloquent you are when you speak because I know when I like try to explain anything I do, I just tend to like ramble nonsense and I get to the end and I'm like, I don't think any of that was actually comprehensible. I think it was all just brain spatter. But like when you speak, it actually sounds very like well put together. So that was very
I mean, I
impressive.
I do spend a lot of time in my head, and I think that's part of it too, where there's a certain point where, especially as I'm gearing up for book two to be out in the world, all this ambient stuff that I've had rattling around in there, it's like, okay, well, I know A, I'm going to have to start talking about it, and B, there is a point where you refine these arguments and these ideas in your own head so much where it's like I don't even have to really think about it. Where it's like as long as I don't say something that's actually not true, the general gist of what I'm saying will come out. So yeah, that's at least how I feel about it.
This isn't quite writing related, but did you have to like practice like your speaking, like especially when talking about your books in like public settings? Because like I know public speaking is something a lot of people stress with, but especially writers who spend a lot of time kind of on their own in their head just writing at their computer, like was that a skill you kind of had to practice before the release of Beating Heart Baby?
So the first panel that I did was for the Texas Librarian Association's annual conference. And this was actually a couple months before BHB came out. And I'm sitting at my first panel and I am actually so nervous that I can't even like say my own name to introduce myself.
Oh.
I was shaking so hard. And this is something that I've struggled with on and off throughout my life where it's just like that surge of adrenaline right before you are asked to do this kind of thing where especially since it was also my first time talking about my work in a way that's like when people have asked me about say reporting and stuff like that, it didn't feel so personal and it didn't feel like I had put so much of my own actual life into it, where there's this sense of like, okay, like yeah, like part of the reason why one writes this type of book is because you don't want to have to be put on the spot to try to explain like give us your 90,000 word quick thesis about like how life and love and like art and artistry, what do those concepts mean to you? Like the whole reason why we do this is so we don't have to be put on the spot to do the whole spiel. Even though clearly there are aspects of it that are like, yes, this is also part of it where it's like by being forced to say what something is over and over again also maybe sometimes gives you a better idea of what you're actually writing toward or what you're working on. Where it's like you think but having to explain it to someone else is like actually if they don't understand it and it's just me talking about it ambiently, then they're how are they going to pick it up and like stay with me for say tens of thousands of words, right?
Yeah.
So something that I started doing was, and I know this is like bad etiquette and I don't really care, is I will depending on the panel, I will take a second, maybe the day before, maybe the hour before, to like write down a little notes app summary of how I want to introduce myself and my work this time around. So I played around with different formats to it, and generally speaking, it's like, yeah, if I don't have it written down pretty much word for word, then just that initial, again, like surge of adrenaline or whatever is going on in my body, it makes it almost impossible for me to get the words out, period.
Mhm.
So I can just be rude for the minute that it takes to do my introduction and give an actual summary of the book that maybe is more accurate to, say, the readership or the particular panel that I am on, where it's like if I'm at a music panel, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the music aspects of the book, or if I'm in a romance panel, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the romantic parts of it because that's what people are actually there perhaps to listen to engage with. And so it's like, it's a way to basically line up my shot as perfectly as possible so that when inevitably, like, I release the bowstring or whatever, just roll with me, then it's like it's already like set up. I don't have to fumble and like try to figure out where to aim. Like the target is already built, and then it's like if I fail, at least it won't be like completely off, like in the other direction. It will be somewhere where I want it to actually be. So
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound like bad etiquette to me. It sounds like you found something that works, that helps alleviate some of that adrenaline rush and helps you focus what you want to say about yourself and your work. I don't think that doesn't sound bad at all.
I just, people are always like, oh, the phones, and I'm like, yeah, on the one hand, sure, but in this case, it's like I don't really have like a notebook where I write this stuff out, or not for this particular purpose. So it's like, yeah, like this is something that the phone can actually do that I feel good about using it. So
Good. Well, you mentioned that volunteering or working at a summer camp was part of what kind of led to the creation of Beating Heart Baby. Something
mhm.
that I really love so much about this book is there's so much passion in it, because they are both artists and they are both kind of the way they speak about their art is just really, really. I don't have the words. Moving. It's very inspiring. I was wondering, like, at what stage did that come in? Like, was that always kind of your jumping off point for the book, or was it more focused on like these teenagers kind of finding their place or finding their confidence?
So there was a point in time. This is I'm gonna answer the I'm going to answer this question kind of backwards. So there was a point in time after I had written the first several iterations of the Beating Heart Baby draft where I was having a conversation with my literary agent where basically it was like, okay, so like, is this actually an adult story or is it a young adult story? And
Mm.
this distinction, I don't know how much it matters in the book reception reading audience world where it's like, I'm not really a part of like book social media networks, etc. Where it's like I'm not online in that way. Let me put it that way.
But
And
it's like
so
a
I didn't.
marketing thing.
Yeah, it's so that's what I ended up kind of learning in real time is that a lot of it is a marketing thing. But one of the true, I guess, distinctions between say older young adult or younger skewing adult literature or all that adult literature that's actually centered on kids and still
Mm-hmm.
has coming of age arcs, the true kind of distinction is that the young adult novel centers that coming of age where it's like the narrative builds itself around it in a way that's like you feel the beats of it as you move through the journey in a way where it's like the adult narrative can meander a lot more. And more specifically, it does not always have to end cleanly. Where again, these are not necessarily things that are a hard dividing line, but that was kind of how it was explained to me. And as I read throughout these worlds, I find is more or less true. And so I knew that I wanted to write specifically about uh, the changing relationships that musicians are having with performance, where it's not just your little performance on the stage or the performance that you capture in one recording that is then the canonical rendition, but the fact that it's like so many, especially singer songwriters, they have to keep coming up with ways of basically saying, "This is my most personal album yet. It's my most personal album yet." And I'm sure you've heard it before. And it's like pretty much every artist um, who writes even tangentially about themselves has to meet this question head on, whether or not that is per se the reason they start making music in the first place. In a way where I actually feel like writers are maybe some types of writers are the final frontier of basically being like, I'm actually not going to lift that veil for you. I'm not going to go there. Like you don't have to, and you maybe shouldn't read my work with that type of reading, quite literally. But I'm not going to get into that right now. So so that part, the passion part of it was always of interest to me because again, I was interviewing a lot of musicians who were kind of in this like maybe 2, 3 albums deep, and their life was actively changing, and they were actively starting to ask themselves like, is this the kind of work that I am going to make forever? Like, or like, how can I change, knowing that this personal touch, this personal relationship is at least part of the reason why most of my listeners have grafted onto my music. And the thing that I think really changed or helped clarify what I wanted to do with BHB specifically was okay, so what if you have a protagonist who is a musician who is not ready to make that line between his life and his music visible, or in particular, like it's not a mantle that he can pick up because he can't come out in his real life. And once that piece kind of set into place, it was like, this is a story about being seen for yourself through your art before you are seen, maybe even by the people closest to you, whether or not you actually have a good relationship to them. And so, what does it mean if, say, that part of your soul that you bared out because you thought that it was a safe place to finally be yourself, what if that space was then threatened with corruption from the real world, which is where you're having all of these issues? And so that was kind of what unlocked Sua's character for me, where it's like he actually doesn't necessarily mind the idea per se, again, that of being related to his art, which he feels so strongly about, which he has to make. It's a compulsion for him. And like, what does that do when it butts up against the reality of his life? And with Santi, it's like again, like they're purposeful foils. So this is, it's perhaps evident, but for him, he doesn't think that he has enough personhood or enough experience, enough like stability and interest and talent maybe to actually pursue the art that he's kind of like, well, I just like doing this, but it's not serious because nothing in my life is really serious because nothing is stable. And his sense of self, um, he not to get too into the back half of the book, but he discovers purpose for himself in the world through his art making in a way where it's like it's actually not about figuring himself out per se, but about doing things for other people. And that's how he builds relationships with the world that are his relationships specifically, instead of say just drifting along through life waiting for things to happen to him. So that's yeah. So that's the art aspect of it was a way to clarify certain ideas that I have about art making and about personhood and like the toll of being a real person who makes art that is then digested and remixed and imprinted on other real people's lives, but not necessarily being privy to that translation where it's like, I know that this means something because it meant something to me as I was making it, but I cannot predict how what that something is for other people. And I think that's something that like maybe one of them verbatim says in it, where it's like this thing that you released out in the world is now taking on a life of its own. And so like it is still your life, and you still have to deal with the repercussions of that being your life. But it also means something totally different to other people, and you just have to kind of make your peace with that too.
I just love that. I think one of the aspects of this book that I loved the most was I feel like it can be very easy to read romances where it feels like the conflict is contrived or forced for the sake of moving the plot forward. But
Mhm.
I loved so much that this was a reckoning of two different ideals kind of coming together, because that feels so realistic to real life, like when two people like disagree or fight or a relationship can end, like it often is because of like more personal ideologies and views like that. So to see that so accurately and well written out in a book where these two characters are kind of grappling with that and overcoming it was just so cool to see. It just made them feel all the more real.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think there's part of it too where it's like um, the fact that the fact that the relationship between them starts out as friendship, right? Where it's like I honestly feel as though sometimes there's this expectation that romance broadly has to be built on maybe like an oppositional force, but something just like again, as you were saying, contrived, where it's like the version that you see in say rom-coms from the 90s and early 2000s is like because he's a man and she's a woman and they can't reconcile these aspects about themselves. But even more minutely, where it's just like, oh, like they are butting heads over all this stuff and they're jumping through all these hoops to not admit how they feel about each other. But it's like, yeah, but okay, but if you're going to be writing a relationship that's starting from a friendship, you can't put them through that same set of hoops because that's not the point. The point is that, there's already a foundation there and you just kind of seed it. And then it's like, well, these things are growing unevenly together. And it's your job as the tender of the romance part of it to make sure that, it's not like two plants are reaching for the sun, but only one of them is getting enough sunlight. No, you have to like water the plot evenly. You have to like weed out. I talk a lot about gardening. Sorry, like there's a version of this that like makes a little bit more sense. But the aspect of it that's like that I think I can salvage out of the attempt at a metaphor is that you are paying attention to them not as two things that have to work together. It's not like a puzzle that you're forcing into place. It's more like you are given a block of wood and you are being asked to carve something that you already know will fit together because it's coming from the same piece. So that aspect of it is like, yeah, I think that their relationship is I maybe also literally wrote this in the book, but there is an aspect too where it's like when something is growing so when things are growing so close to each other, where you think that, oh, like they're destined to move in the same direction together. But actually, what that means is that the point in which they can potentially converge, diverge through realistically portrayed conflict is that's also a huge part of like that kind of intimacy with other people where it's like it's not just about being like in direct opposition with each other. It's like actually you can be so on the same page together, you can be so close, you can be so in tune with each other that you don't even notice how you're like abrading each other until like one of you starts bleeding, so to speak. Where it's like, yeah, it's too close. You're too close to see where you're actually going and how things are actually going.
I love that. I think especially because it is such a more not realistic isn't quite the word I'm looking for, but often in romance stories, I feel like you can often get like kind of how you were mentioning how the two of them just don't get along and the whole time it's them learning how to get along and then by the time it ends it's like oh okay everyone lives happily ever after. I liked that we got to see because I believe well I don't want to spoil it um because I know not everyone in chat has read it, so I don't want to spoil things, but I feel like it wasn't so much a focus on these two characters getting together. It was about them communicating and learning how to like reconcile and still continue together. So I really appreciated that it wasn't just about how they get together, but it's more about their journey together and how it affects both of them and their own desires and who they want to become. So
Yeah,
I loved that.
no, it's cool to hear. And that is something that I think it's like, um, yeah, where the beauty of being in the romance genre is that everybody kind of knows that if you're reading a romance, like, guess what's going to happen, right? But there is something fun in a in the sense of like I'm making my little puppets dance for me where there is that part though where it's like yeah but getting together is not even like the top 10 hardest things about maintaining any relationship. Like meeting someone is like never the actual hard thing
Yeah.
for the purposes of genre, right? Where it's like how do you convince people that you actually want them to be together and that you root for their relationship to work in whatever way that actually might mean, which might not always even be the romantic ending, where it's like the characters are so alive that you are able to make you root for them as individuals, not just the idea of them together. Um, which, yeah, I don't know. It was a challenge.
I bet. When you said this was your first book, I was floored. That's so impressive that because I feel like a lot of people their first book either goes through so much rewriting, it's an entirely different book by the time they publish it, or their first book is locked away in a drawer somewhere for no one to see ever. So that is incredible that you were able to kind of work that out and write it so well.
Yeah, I mean, I did rewrite this book like 5 times. To be clear, like, I think there's maybe maybe like 20 pages total that actually are more or less what they started off as being, and a lot of it was, I think, coming from the idea of like, okay, so if the story is young adult, then I have to make it as dramatic as young adult the genre in popular discourse is. And at the time, I was watching Riverdale, which is just like not a good model for like stable storytelling. If there's one thing that you can take out of this conversation, that's it. Like, don't outline off of like the Riverdale rubric. Which is like, to be clear, wildly entertaining, but just like like this is not something anybody should attempt without a writer's room. So
Mm.
the so there was a part of it where it was like figuring out like, if I'm telling the story, like how do I boil down all of the aspects of the story that I know about in my head. I feel them. I feel these characters. I feel their lives. How do I do the most direct and accurate and like faithful, not even to just like my own voice, and also discovering what my voice might sound like, and then doing two of them. But like all of that is happening, and at the same time, it's like, and then there's going to be the gap between my head and then the actual page.
Mm.
So everything that now have to do in my head also has to make it through that jump in medium from thought to word to language, instead of just like an ambient mood board of stuff. I should also say that like a huge part of this writing process, which I think is as valuable as anything in the book itself, is that I made 3 playlists based on the book. And one of them goes track by track, because the chapters in the book are in BHB are tracks. It's a track by track recreation of the entire book. And it was actually something I built alongside the writing. And there are most of the chapters are usually written to the music, where it's like the
Oh.
way that the song will actually, I can send this to you later, the way that the
Please do.
song,
Please do.
say, yeah, goes through like um goes through its own, 3, 5, whatever minute structure, is how I will actually pace the chapter that I am writing to it. So there's that track by track playlist for BHB, and then there's what playlist that tells the entire story of the book solely through Santi's POV, and then a version of the playlist that tracks the entire book through Sua's POV, which, as you can imagine, there are quite some divergences in opinion depending on where we are in the story, for like what's happening and how they're feeling. And so that part of it was also kind of like, okay, the the music aspect of it makes it an easier shorthand for some of the emotionality that I'm getting across, because I am quite literally listening to someone doing it in as I write. And so I'm not actually doing this without any sort of structure. I am doing it with a structure. It's just not maybe, the traditional 3 act outline per se. But that part really helped me, having the music alongside me to help guide the like the beat by beat progression of certain things. And instead of it being me like throwing things against the wall and seeing what stuck, it was like, okay, plot has to get from here to here, but here's how a song did it. So you might as well just figure out how they did it, and then you can just kind of copy their homework.
That is so cool. I've never heard of anyone structuring their writing that way, but it sounds like so interesting. I have to ask, by the end of writing these books, were you tired of the songs or
um, So I mean, it's like it's been a minute. Actually, that's not true. I was reading a book. Um, by a friend. Hold Me Like a Grudge by Celine Ong, I believe, coming out next year. But so she is someone who actually I met online because she posted about reading BHB, loving BHB. And then when she was like, "Well, you've loved the book," I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so while reading her book, I actually went through and listened to the BHB playlist for the first time in a long time, like maybe not like a year because I can't stay away for that long, but like at least like a couple of months, if not actually longer. And usually it's like I won't listen to the whole thing. I won't listen to all three in a row. So this was like that was probably the first time in years that I did that. And yeah, so that was like a lot of these songs, the reason why they're on the playlist is because either there's something that I can listen to truly without any prompting, or I so rarely listen to the song because of the emotional state that they put me in that it's like it's a special treat to actually hear them, period. And those are the songs that I didn't repeat or I didn't really have to think about when I'm writing to them, where it's like I know the song Geyser by Mitski beat by beat. I don't have to be listening to that song to know how the song is going, which meant that when I wrote the chapter that is based on that song, I didn't have to like reference it because if I had to reference it, I would probably have not written that chapter because it's a pretty devastating song on its own. And then it's like associated with this time of my life and all these other things, right? So that's but the thing that I will say is there were certain songs that I looped on repeat, maybe like 2 dozen songs that are not related to the actual playlists themselves, but like I was just in a group listening to say um this one song by the band Interpol, a bunch of stuff that like ended up now being on its own playlist that I call weirdly productive, where it's just music that like for whatever reason, like Chains by Nick Jonas is on there. Like I don't like I put that song on and it's like basically like a totally pacifying loop. I can listen to it forever. And when I ever find myself in a situation where I need to like buckle down and like just crank something out, that's the kind of song where it's like, or like that's the playlist that I put on because it's like all of these songs have been vetted by me in the past where I can listen to them 100 times in a row and not get tired of
Well, that's good. That's good that you have that many songs because I was trying to think. I feel like I do this thing where I listen to one song obsessively, like 1,000 times, and then I can't listen to it anymore. So I am glad that you do not have that.
them. I don't get sick of songs, but the people around me get sick of them. And that's usually the limiting factor where it's like, if someone's like, I can sing the song that you've been listening to because I've heard it so many times, despite me not being the person who's ever listened to the song, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm really sick of that. Or yeah, I don't know. I feel this way with like music that plays like in stores, like retail music, where it's like I have not listened to this album, but I know this Ed Sheeran song so well because it's just always on when I'm out in the world.
Hmm.
So stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, how did you go from? So you said you started off in journalism. How was kind of the transition from? Because I feel like that's a very different type of writing. So how did you kind of learn, or I guess what was kind of the process of going from journalism to writing your first book? Was it something you had to like kind of adjust your style for? Was it something you learned along the way as you were writing the book, or did you do a lot of serious upfront planning?
So the main thing about journalism that did take some figuring out on my like active figuring out on my end was that in reporting, you don't really get to have a voice where it's like you're usually pulling quotes from other people and building a story that's meant to convey like an actual timeline or a set of facts that are built in with a broader narrative but like the facts are generally speaking more important and I had done some personal essay writing throughout my writing life but it was not something very regular and it was also something where it was like I felt like, and I can say with some confidence that I was mostly copying other people's writing styles for a lot of it, where it was like, I am trying to figure out a way to say this thing, but I don't really know how to say it in this way because that's not really my training. But I'm going to figure out a way to at least like approach the style that I want to be writing in because this is the only writing space in that time in my career where I can do that, where I can have a voice and I can say things about myself instead of reporting on someone else. But toward the later part of my reporting career, I was doing a lot more long form profile pieces or feature pieces, which means that I was expected to have my own kind of writer voice for them alongside whatever else that I am writing about. And one of the bigger turning points for me was writing a story on Japanese Breakfast, the musician who you might know in the book world as Michelle Zauner, who wrote Crying in H Mart. And this was right before, this is actually not right before, but this is before that book even sold, and she was coming off of these two albums. It was like her third, fourth band. She was kind of being like, yeah, like I'm having all of these questions about like when did I make it? Like I have to keep working until I make it, but what does that actually mean? And I was weirdly kind of having these same questions for myself in the reporting career. This is actually like I think I had already started taking a day job at that time. So I was like, yeah, like what is here for me? Like, what do I actually like about this? Because it's certainly not getting paid $250 for 2,500 words about like me carving out like a part of my mind and trying to like serve it out to a web audience that is slowly disappearing, right? Like, it was not for the money. And it was certainly not for the love of the game, which I think is something that drives you when you're first in that field and you're like, I just have to be pitching. I have to be doing all this. I have to jump on every trend. I have to blah, blah, blah. This is how you build a career. Like that entire model was changing. And I was like, I don't think I want to keep up in this way anymore. I had already really dialed back my freelancing and was, yeah, like did not really know how to progress from there without jumping back into the rat race in a way that I was like, I think that's going to be really bad for me. like I think that's going to be really bad for my mind and body because I have evidence that it was. And and so when the idea for BHB kind of like started to form, like it wasn't just like an ambient thing. It was like, oh, like again, like all these conversations I've been having. Like, what if you put a kid through that same conversation, and what if you had something to say about the world, the creative world, through this kid and the people around this kid, and what if there was also like another kid, and it was all set in LA, which I had moved from. Back in 2017 to come up to the Bay Area, and which I still miss, and I still think is like my perfect city, truly, the place that I will always associate as home. Despite the fact that I have now been up here for longer than I lived in LA, which is something that is kind of wild. But so all of this is to say that I had a lot of these ideas that I was turning over in my own head about art and life and meaning and like what does it mean to live a creative life, when a lot of the people that I knew who were artists in their own right were doing this on top of a day job, were doing this and basically like figuring out a way to continue to make the work that they wanted to make, but kind of setting aside the idea that they were ever going to hit it either big or hit like the stability needed for that to be the only thing that they did with their life. And I had that conversation with myself. Um, I was fresh off of the summer camp job, and I was like, you know what? Let's just start writing and see what happens because I'm not like I think a lot of people get asked if their first pieces of fiction are autobiographical, and like pretty much every aspect of BHP is not autobiographical, but it was certainly a way of like processing my feelings through like the safe safe filter of fiction, where by ascribing these feelings and emotions to these other characters, who were also dealing with other things that I just have on my mind, then I was maybe able to get some more clarity about what it was that I was actually working through or thinking about. And maybe that would in turn say something true about the world in a way that someone reading the book could pick up on that and they will not have gone through the same topsy turvy, whatever circuitous path that I did to get into fiction writing, but they will recognize the sensation of being like, when does the dream become a job, and what do you lose in that translation? Which is something that like I do think is a question that kids are asking themselves more these days in a way that it's like, oh, like you don't have to worry about that until you're a real adult. And it's like, nah, like they are out here, like worrying about themselves, their generations, and kind of like how they might achieve their dreams when there are so many new pathways open for going from no like instant startup, right? But they also have seen enough cautionary tales about what that actually looks like in practice. So it's no longer just like, oh, like I want that overnight success. I want that like coming out of nowhere journey. I want that for myself. It's like if this opportunity were to present itself to me and I'm going to work toward it, how do I then survive everything that I actually do know comes after?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And I I loved how sincere and honest and genuine like everything felt within the book. Like again, we kind of talked earlier about how like in some romances, like the conflicts can feel contrived, but like every struggle, every emotion just felt like it was genuine and full of yearning and hope and worry too, because how can you not have anxiety, especially at that point in your life where you're trying to figure out like what you want to do, where you want to go, as you see like all of your friends who are about to leave, and you're like, where does that leave me afterwards? Like, who am I without my friends?
Mhm.
So I just really admired how earnest the entire book felt in such a good and refreshing way. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think that was another part of the reason why I ended up gravitating toward YA specifically, where I was like, there's a version of this book that maybe positions it in a different way that is perhaps better to me, where it's a lot colder and it's a lot more true to a version of real life that is the adulthood version of these emotions or these complications. And it's like, I don't really live that way in my own life and the relationships that I mean, I just like there's like a version of adulthood that I think like you can really scare kids into thinking like everything in your life is going to change. Like you like all these things that you took for granted will fade away. You'll have to start making big scary decisions about very big scary things in your life, usually alone if you don't have a good relationship with say your family or with like a close knit like and close by group of friends. And so there was a part of it where I was like, I don't want to add to the irony poisoning of the culture. I don't want to add to the idea that you cannot build the future that you want through the tools and the like the options that actually are present to you. But I also, don't want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes and be like, this will definitely happen to you, because that's also like not. And again, like there's also the whole thing like, would you actually want that to happen to you outside of the heartbeat recognition of like, yes, that would be so good. But it's like, hang on. So yeah, I think that there's something that I truly do believe and kind of hold on to as a mantra for my own life is that um, you can only make it to the future by staying alive. And it sounds very trite, but it's like that will be the thing that actually like forces me to say, get out of bed or do the thing that I don't want to do or put myself out there in a way where I'm like, oh, like this is as scary as it was when I was 12 years old, you know? Um, and it's like, yeah, but the version of you that will have done that thing and has like made it through this thing and now has a whole new world opened up to them as a result of you doing this thing. Like that person literally will not exist unless you get them there. And so that aspect of it too, where it's kind of like, yeah, you just have to kind of go. Um, that is something that I do think as far as all of my YA writing and probably all of my writing period from here on out. It's like that part will always be there because that is the actual only thing that I have to say to anybody, which is just like you just have to make it. Like it's like obviously it's not as simple as that. I don't want to like boil it down to something so reductive and also like uh, the circumstances for each person's ability to change their own life is wildly different person to person. I want to be clear. I do understand that.
Well,
Um,
of course. And I think the
yeah.
hardest part of like young adulthood and early adulthood is it takes time. Like I feel like as it's happening, it constantly feels like you're in a slow motion wreck and you're trying your best to fix it, and it's only like years later sometimes that you feel like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I got through it and that helped me to get to where I am now." But to write that in fiction can often be hard because if I imagine BHB as like adult, I feel like it would be harder to convey everything in a way that is not just depressing over over a
Yeah.
short, well, because I feel like as an adult you
No,
have
I
so
mean,
many
you're
roles.
right. You're right. Yeah.
um Sorry, I realized how that came off after I said it. I didn't quite mean it like that,
No,
but
no, 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 no. I'm laughing because it's true, right? Where it's just like the sense of wonder and like the open-hearted acceptance that Santi especially has for the world. Like that usually doesn't make it like past, or that doesn't. It's something you have to fight very hard to have remain intact in your person. And I do mean this because it's something that I think myself and most of the people that I know, like we have had to like figure out ways to remain centered on not like joy as the idea of joy per se, or like personal joy, but like what actually makes me feel grateful and gracious to be in my life right now in this moment, and how do I basically try to extend some grace to my past selves and other people's past selves, while also figuring out how can we collectively now make it to the future together. And
yeah.
it's like that sense of wonder is, at least this time around, like a lot easier to write through kids, because it's like, again, like there's so many forces that tell you that when you're a kid, right, that like, oh, like things only get harder and harder and harder, when in fact the opposite I think is true for in practice, where it's like you're never less without freedom than you are when you are a kid. And it's like maybe like freedom does not actually open up for you in the same way as it does for other people. And maybe freedom, like also like freedom to or freedom from, these are like different things. But your actual ability to make decisions for yourself, that doesn't really open up for you until later on in your life. And so it was like,
Yeah.
okay, so like we've trapped these characters within the prism of childhood, and then it's like, so from here, how do we then make the reader want them to break out? Like, how do we actually want them to figure out their way through the labyrinth? Because that's the ongoing thing that all of us um, are have been going through and continue to go through, except that we just don't have as many, I think. We've now lived long enough and we've experienced enough to know that like the chances of things happening the way that you imagine them are like much, much less in some ways, than like what the dream has been told to you. But like that's the stuff that like you put on your mood board. That's the stuff that you're like, man, I wish my life was like this. But in reality, the fact that like you've made it to wherever you are and you have the life that you have is already itself a huge accomplishment. And like as you were saying, like you don't really like take that or you take that for granted almost until there's a point where you're like, actually no, like it took a minute for me to get somewhere, but the fact that I am here is a testament to the fact that I did it, which is just this recursive loop of like, because I did it, I did it.
Yes. I just feel like it's hard in the span of one book to make that entire cycle when it can take years or even decades in your own life to come to kind of that realization. So it's like, how would you compact that into one book and make it feel not too fast paced?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I like once you finish something like that, you're just kind of left staring at like after the fifth rewrite, to be clear to, where it's like, well, I think that this is probably where it's going to be with the structure that it is and with the characters that I have chosen to lead this journey, where it's kind of like there's a point in which you start not necessarily running out of things to say, but again, like taking my cues from pop music, where it's like sometimes these songs are like 3.5 minutes long, and like the entire universe has just been crystallized perfectly into that moment. So I don't have the benefit of music to guide that like shorthand for emotionality, but I do have tens of thousands of words that try to do the same thing that like one bass line can do. And so there is that part where it's just like, by following the structure of the song, that also means that you have to know when the song ends. And so I just tried to find places throughout the story where like that song could end, but a new one picks up afterward. And that sense of propulsion is something that I actually am pretty proud of as a writer, where it's like you get to the end of the chapter and it already feels like the next song is coming on. So
Yes. Something I really enjoyed about BHB was while I was reading it, I sometimes struggle to read fiction to feel like this kind of sense of compelling. I have to keep reading. I have to know what's next because often I sorry, I should have prefaced with I usually read fantasy where it's like super high stakes. There are such like life and death cliffhangers, and I'm
Yeah.
more used to that kind of pacing. So when I read like fiction and I feel that same sense of compulsion, like I can't put the book down. I have to know what happens next. Like I always have to wonder, how do you do that? How do you do that? Because there's no like I think in there are very clear structures in certain kinds of stories, like the hero's journey, which is very traditional
Mhm.
in like fantasy settings. But when you don't have something necessarily like that, where it's very kind of predictable, but also like well worn because it's effective. Sorry, it's thundering very badly over here, just in case the call
It's
drops.
all good. It's all good. Yeah, I haven't heard thunder in a hot second. Actually, that's not true because there've been fireworks going off on my block for like the past 3 weeks. So
Oh,
never mind.
God, I feel that.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a fun, nice time. They are beautiful, but I'm just like, wow.
You get tired of them. But basically,
I
that was a long-winded way of asking how do you
yeah.
how do you have like this sense of like energy and movement when it is real life? Like it's how do you kind of keep the plot moving forward and compelling your reader to keep going, especially because I thought you did such an amazing job of it.
So, I mean, this part actually almost exactly comes out of playlisting, where like me and my some of my closest friends, we are obsessed with making playlists either for ourselves or for each other as gifts and stuff like that. I do know people who are DJs and who are out in that world doing that like on a performance level too. And there is an art to making a good playlist. And the thing that I discovered when doing this translation is that those same qualities are also what make a good chapter to chapter transition, where you're almost like in, say, if you're, this makes me sound 1,000 years old, but you're spinning at the club. And it's like there's an art to matching the song's energy level where it's like maybe it's not the same beats per minute, which is perhaps the most obvious way to match songs in sequence. But like if the mood is right, you can carry over from like disco to disco, or like you can carry over like certain types of electronic music flow together better than others. And this is something that when I am making a playlist, I will always, 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 even if I don't listen to the actual songs all the way through the entire time that I'm building it out, because then like 9 days will pass. Um, I will always listen to the transitions between songs, like 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after, to figure out whether or not it works by whatever extremely arbitrary metric I am trying to make work. And again, it could be like tonally, where it's like, you're coming out of a melancholic mood, so we don't necessarily want to um, go straight into something that's very poppy and very cheerful, or it's like it's a long outro, it's winding, it's taking its time. There's something really beautiful about backing that kind of outro into an intro that does the same thing but going toward a new sound where it almost fades in and fades out on its own, even though these are songs by completely different artists, maybe from completely different genres. So taking those ideas and basically applying them toward specifically the openings and endings of chapters, where it's like anything can be going on inside the actual chapter. And as I think I mentioned before, there's like, depending on the nature of the song that I'm writing to for certain sequences, it's like there will be climaxes within the chapter itself that I am building toward, which are not necessarily lined up with like the traditional third act kind of structure. Like I'm doing acts within the chapters themselves. But if I can thread the needle for the mood, the tone, and the emotionality of the point of view character from beat to beat, from like the end of one chapter into the beginning of the next, you will not notice that time has passed, that the scene has changed because you are still being carried by that feeling. And that's something that's like, again, like pop music accomplishes all of this in like less than 4 minutes. So if I have, say, like 3,000 words blocked out for a chapter, then it's like, okay, like that last like 500, that's where I want like the final rendition of the chorus to come in. Or like if I'm building like a weird bridge situation where it's like something has to really change the tone of the song so that the final chorus will now mean something different that then allows me to set up my next chapter in which the mood changes, in which the characters start making decisions that you're like, why are you doing that? Because plot. Um, and yeah, so that's something that is directly taken out of music, where it's just like you're listening for that thing that makes it so that like you almost go like, oh, when the new song comes in, but you never feel as though the thing that you're in is dragging. And I think that's a huge part of it, where it's like I mean, if you are coming, as a fantasy reader, I read a decent amount of fantasy and sci-fi myself. There are definitely moments, right, when like sometimes the writer just like needs to throw a bunch of information at you. And there's a version of the writer doing that. And this is like, again, like I'm not trying to talk smack. I understand this is like sometimes the world is just so big you have to
Oh,
do this.
not at
But
all.
it's like but like you're throwing so much information out in one time, and there's only like one way to deliver this information in the way that the story demands it, and it's to say everything at like basically at once and have it go for a long time with no break again of new information and world building. And it's like on the one hand, I like this will usually save the writer a huge amount of work later on in the story. But as a reader, it's like this is just like a wall of sound. This is like a wall of noise and information. And like if I have the ability to stomach it and move through it, I will be rewarded for my patience later on. But like that is a barrier to entry, I think, for a lot of people going into like especially harder sci-fi and fantasy. Versus there is a version of um, doling out that information with any story, right? Like it's not even just like fiction now. Like I think maybe this is also part of the reporting aspect too, where it's like I do like 5 hours of interviews and then I have to figure out like the 5 minutes of interviews transcripts that I actually build the story around. So it's like taking all of this information and condensing it and then like feeding it out in a way where it doesn't feel like you're being flooded with all of this information, with all of these ideas at once, but it's slow drip that you can follow along with and doesn't feel as much of a pain to keep flipping the page because there's enough time for your brain to like rest in the story itself. Um, sorry, I just talked for like a really long
Oh,
time.
you are all good. Sorry, I was fascinated, especially when you were talking about how you would like lead into chapters as if they were songs, matching like the tone and like mood. I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. I've never thought of writing in this way. Like the connections you make between music and storytelling and writing are just so cool.
I mean, it was like the dominant feature of my life for a really long time, and it still is. Like that interest, that passion for music is still, I think, the strongest. Actually, no, it's either music or anime. But like either way, it's like there are two things that are like my actual creative like passions that I have on my own, and neither of them are books.
Well,
Yeah,
that is all right because it all melts together. So speaking
I'm
of
here for it.
anime, I so the way that these two characters in Beating Heart Baby initially meet is because of a fictional anime. I was really curious to know like why you chose anime as kind of this connecting point between them when you could have easily gone for like they're both really into music and art and see themselves as like artists. So I was curious like why you chose anime as kind of a passion that goes alongside their existing passions in the book.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that when I was a kid, anime was not cool. It was
Yep.
probably like one of the like least cool things that you could be into, especially I would say for myself and some of my closest childhood friends because we were also Asian in a mostly non-Asian part of the states where it was like okay so like this is something that like is just another like target on our backs in terms of like oh you like of course you like this Japanese thing because you're Asian and it's like well I mean like it's hard to deny the allegations in some ways but it was also like a little bit more complicated than that.
Hmm.
And the other part of it was that animation to me is like music does everything or like I am not necessarily always invested in like the lives and like the image of the musicians that I'm listening to. I am usually just there for the sound. And like there are maybe like a handful of artists who like I actually like follow their lives and I read their interviews and stuff like that. But most people it's just like I'm just listening to what you have decided is your preferred way of communicating your art to me. And I'm not going to try to like delve into your life. I'm not going to be looking up the, like the genius annotations of like every single thing that you write because that's not really how I'm listening to most music. Um, and so animation is the only other art form that to me that can rival um, that type of fully fully fluid and free expression. Where it's like music is like it does all of this through sound, and then with animation, it can be synced with sound, which is actually my favorite thing. Which is like animation that's been designed around music is actually my favorite art form. Period. But
Yes.
um, but then animation alone it's it is not bound to the laws of physics. It is not bound to reality as an art form at all. Every single thing, generally speaking, at least the way that the industry has historically operated, every single thing that is happening in the image, in the animated image, is there intentionally. Where it's like there's no like extra, like there's no room for like kind of like unintentional set dressing. If there's a cloud in the sky, someone drew it and someone drew the way that it moves in and out of the frame. If there is sunlight, then it's like the way that the light reflects and it's interacting with the characters and the background and all of that stuff. That's like someone designed that and thought about how the sunlight hit, this person's face to give weight to this moment. Like all of that is done in a way that um, is like there's just no detail that is kind of ambient. Again, I'm talking about historically because I know a lot has changed about the industry since. Um, and so that intentionality is like something I've always really admired and is also like what drew me to anime and animation is the idea of it building out the impossible world in a way where it's like, yes, like you are given new frontier to actually experience things. Like you'll see things that you could never see in real life because this is not real life. And so that aspect to it, I thought was thematically on point with the idea that like, oh, you have your online life and you have your real life, and so on the online life, you have the freedom and the permission to finally have the ability to create the version of yourself that maybe you can't live in your real life. Um, and so that was important for a couple of reasons. And the other part of the reason why they bond over anime is because I was on anime internet when I was a kid, and I was like, you know what, like yeah. So like a lot of people and this is like not a knock thing, but it's like, oh, if a book says that they're about anime, it means that they like reference Sailor Moon. And that's fine. That's a reference, whatever. But I was like, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to take this reference and like build it out on a thematic level and also have what the story, like the story within the story, end up feeling like something that would have actually changed my life if I had, say, encountered that when I was a kid. So it was fun to like have that little thing where I could just build it. I could build my own little diorama inside of the diorama I was already building. Um, yeah,
I loved also that it kind of felt like it went back to feeling like you don't belong or you're displaced. Because I remember, like in middle and high school, like I feel like anime nowadays is so like not quite mainstream, but it is much
it's
more like,
close.
yeah, it's getting
Yeah,
there. It's getting there.
yeah,
But I remember, like in middle school and high school, like you'd be like, "Oh, you're into anime. Are you like into anime?" Like the very like tentative, like, oh, how into anime are you? Are you like a Dragon Ball Z fan and that's the only anime you've ever seen? Or have you seen like the more obscure like shows? How
yeah,
deep are you? And trying to figure
yeah,
out like those interests and hiding how passionate you are about it. I
yeah,
I definitely remember that.
yeah,
So it just felt like another cool layer of that feeling of like being uncertain about yourself, that really added to the
yeah.
story in a way that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it too, where it's like with anything that is, um, like anything that has this like nerdy cast to it, and or it's like it has this gatekeeping aspect to it too, where it's like even if you're into something, it's like maybe you don't admit how deep you are into something because A, it'll get you ridiculed, or B, the people that are saying like, oh, you can join us at the table will be like, no, you're actually not deep enough for it, which is also like a pretty real phenomenon.
Yeah.
um yeah, so it's like there's versions of that in music too, but music is like most people are not going to get on your case if you're listening to most music. Um, Versus like you don't even have to be that deep into animation to be hit with the like, oh, like so you only watch like kid cartoons and stuff like that, where it's like
Hmm.
that's not, we're not talking about the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's very interesting, like talking about like gatekeeping and levels. Like, oh, are you just a normie watcher, or oh, you're not into anime enough, you're just a tourist. Like,
Mm,
I know these days it's oh, so you only watch Shonen Jump, so you're not actually an anime fan. You just like whatever is most popular this season. It's just like,
yeah.
sorry, I'm super into anime, so it was
No, no,
very
that's cool. Yeah.
interesting and made me think about like the evolution of like the community and the perceptions of anime itself. Sorry, that was
Yeah.
off the beaten track.
No, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot too. I always joke with people that it's like now that anime is ascendant in the culture, it's like actually it's not cool again. Like, or like it's become the type of cool that like the part of me that actually was watching anime as a kid would be like, oh, that's not cool anymore. But at the same time, I'm still watching stuff, so what do I actually have to say about all of that? Like, yeah, I think there's a part of it too where it's like it's for anything that you gravitated toward as a teenager, there's the tendency to approach it almost as like a point of unwavering, unevolving nostalgia, where it's like or like it has the potential to be that. When in reality, it's like actually like there are ways for this passion to evolve with you. We just don't really, like everybody always talks about like, oh, your music taste freezes, past like the same five bands that you listened to when you were a kid, and it's like that's one version of that journey, but like that's not actually how most people I think live their lives. And acting like it all reduces down to that is like it's just like unimaginative. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do want to ask about the Love Club, your upcoming book. Would you like
for
to tell
sure.
us about it?
So the Love Club is coming out in a little bit less than a month. And it is pretty different from BHB in pretty much every way. And in the sense that, for starters, it is mostly sci-fi fantasy. People can't really decide which one it is, and I'm not going to pretend that I know what the dividing line is. Um, but it's a sci-fi fantasy kind of psychological horror video game story in the sense that it's about this girl O who grew up and was best friends with these other girls, Liberty, Vera, and Elle. And together their names, the first initials of their names spell out L-O-V-E. And they bond to each other their in their kind of like cloistered conservative community, um, as outcasts from most of the rest of the people that they live around, and also as gamers who really only play with each other, but for various reasons that the book itself will get into. And so 3 years before the beginning of the story, ELLE, the E in the LOVE club disappears, and O, who was her best friend within their best friendship, um, kind of does not really know what to do with her life and lives sort of aimlessly throughout her life, kind of being like, I just wish Elle were here because then I would understand how, um, like who to be as a person. And around the time that Elle disappeared, Liberty and Vera also left the town that they grew up in. And so for 3 years, O, at the start of the story, has been alone out of the from like going from like a tight knit group of four friends to just being herself on her own. And then their senior year of high school, Liberty and Vera actually moved back to Calendula, the town that they grew up in. And the three of them are um, each drawn back to their old clubhouse and their old middle school. and like they didn't tell the others, they didn't like communicate or anything. They just all find themselves there, and this Clubhouse has a computer in the room, and it's been off the entire time that O can remember since the group fell apart. But tonight it's on, and there is a video game loaded for them to play on the computer. The name of the game is Morning Glory, and um, as you know, like O is going through all these feelings about being with her old best friends again. She's like, what would happen if we played this game? And so she clicks into it, and then the three of them are brought into the world of the game, and then they play through the game, fighting four bosses across four different levels to find out, amongst other things, what exactly happened 3 years ago when L.E.L.L.E. went missing. Um, so yeah, it's very very different in a lot of ways, and also it's like this is one of those things that I only started to really think about once I started to having talk about the book, which is the fact that L's name is L.E.L.L.E. It's like when you're reading that, that's not something you have to clarify. But as I'm talking about it, I keep being like, wait, but like I'm not talking about L like that. Um, I was doing it live, yeah.
Ain't that just the way? So many things you don't realize until you say them out loud, like, oh, this could potentially be confusing.
Yeah, but you know, I did make that choice and I've stuck with it. So, ain't that just the way is right indeed. Yes.
Ain't that just the way?
Yeah.
So, why did you decide to take such a different turn from BHB? Because, like you said, it sounds like it's very different. Not in a bad way, just like in terms of tone, genre. What made you decide to take such a divergent path for your next book?
So the big one was that I've now been through enough young adult events and met enough people who write in young adult to know that like this isn't just me making this up. A lot of people will talk about how they started writing in young adult or in the kidlit space to write for their younger self, to provide a book, say that their younger self would have appreciated having. And my younger self would not have picked up BHB. I was reading or only like watching sci-fi, fantasy, pretty much exclusively whatever I was reading that was like contemporary, especially like contemporary romance, would be like it would also be fantasy or it would also be sci-fi. Like it was not something I sought out on my own pretty much ever. And so there was part of it where it was like the fact that BHB was my first book was shocking even to myself, where it was like, okay, like it was very much a product of me writing like a bunch of life things happening in the exact moment in which something like this could have emerged. But if I actually were to like go back, say 5, 6 years and ask myself, you know, what would your first book be? It would be a lot more like the Love Club. Um, and specifically, I think the idea of writing about a specific type of friendship where it's like I can't tell if I want to be you or if I can't tell if I want to be with you as your friend or if I actually want to like skin you open and step into your life and take over your life actually. And I had a lot of friendships like that when I was a kid where it was like I just don't really know like what this feeling is that I have about you, and some of it had to do with, without getting too much into it, with like with actually not feeling comfortable with like girlhood, womanhood, young womanhood, adolescence period, and having just a lot of mixed messages about how I was supposed to be in the world and having all of these examples that I thought were just doing that better than me. Where now, you know, having gone through a bunch of personal changes in a lot of ways. It's like some of that was actually like I was trying to jam a shoe that was way too small onto my foot and being like, why can everybody else walk in these shoes? Because they are all wearing shoes that fit. Um, and so yeah, there was that part of it, and then I also think there's that aspect too of um, like the like a specific type of like toxic friendship that is usually its most potent expressions to me are between girls and between women, where it's like a type of jealousy and a type of like resentment that brews. And it's like the same take on what I was talking about with BHB, where you're so close to something that you cannot help but cause friction in between each other, because you're going for the same thing. You have to be in each other's orbits, and you don't really understand like why you cannot gain some more distance. And in this case, it's quite literal. They live together, and they're the only people that they really see um, in their community, of each other in their community. So yeah, I think it's like that was front and center. And the other part is that while BHB was like, there's a specific set of anime that I was referencing for BHB, including but not limited to like the classic Shonen Jump rivalry dynamic. Um, the anime that I had on my mood board for TLC was stuff like Revolutionary Girl Utena, and what else, like Madoka, where it's just like these girls going, yeah, these girls going through this stuff where it's like it's almost it's bad regardless, but it's definitely worse that it's girls. And I don't know how to explain that outside. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, it's like it's a specific type of relationship that when it's actually reflected back on the bodies that it's reflecting back onto, it's like 1,000 times more like viscerally worse, even though it would be bad no matter what.
Hmm.
So yeah. So that was what I had on my mind when I was writing TLC.
I'm so excited. I feel like I have not read too many books that explore that, and especially like how you mentioned like that kind of toxic relationship between especially young girls, like when they're trying to kind of navigate like womanhood, like especially through puberty and growing up. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
it's
So,
it's a little weirder, but I think that it's definitely weirder. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I mean,
So.
I feel like it's always the heart of the story that speaks more than whatever, like you said, whatever weird elements there may be, however odd this framework might be. I think something that really shines in your writing is that earnestness and that genuineness. So I have a feeling it's gonna come through in the next book as well. So I'm excited.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Yeah.
but I usually like to end interviews by asking, what would your one piece of advice for aspiring writers be?
I think that as this is something that I've been talking about pretty much the entire time that we've been talking, but it's just like there there is something to be gained as a writer from reading a lot. I don't want to like dismiss the value that reading has on like also like your own life and like what you gain from life too. Um, but as far as storytelling, I would just encourage people to look outside of writing as their only models for learning how to write. And I think it's like certain, like, I actually don't know many people who say reading is their only interest, writing is their only interest. Like, usually they are also into movies or they're into uh, like digital art, visual art, period. They're into music or whatever. Like there's almost always one other creative form that has, if not the equal, but a lasting and a lasting influence and interest in their life. And so I would encourage um, young writers who live in this kind of like very multimedia, very cross-referential, remix-friendly society to think about how these other aspects of storytelling can be folded into and inform their writing. At the very least, inform their voice. Where I think that there's a huge opportunity to learn from the way that like language is literally evolving in real time across different art forms in different ways where it's like I learned something from like you can learn something about how language is used by like reading a chat log or something like that, or by reading like the comments on Instagram, where it's like, on the one hand, yeah, maybe you're trying to kill some time, or you're just like trapped in the scroll doom spiral. But on the other hand, it's like that's where language is evolving in real time. And so it's like to act as though, language can only canonically exist in the written word in a certain type of style or whatever. It's like that's just not true. And I feel like, especially as, you know, um, the pace of art production, art criticism changes very, very quickly, right? You're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice of not trying to keep up with that, even if it's not the bleeding edge of exactly where you want to be. but just kind of taking a lay in the land of like how are people actually like processing and what kinds of storytelling is working across different mediums and how can I learn something from that in a way that like will help me do the thing that I actually want to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. Learn from everything you can all the time.
there's um there's this filmmaker named Werner Herzog who has done a lot of stuff throughout his career, but he makes like very quote unquote like highbrow films. Let me put it that way. And he was once doing this interview where someone was like surprised that he watches, say, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and a bunch of reality TVs. They're like, Werner Herzog, you're an Academy Award winning documentarian, filmmaker. You make very serious movies for very serious people. Like, how is it that you are like watching reality TV? And the quote that he gave back was, "The poet shall not divert his eyes," or something like that, where it was just like, it's you have to face whatever is like storytelling and art or whatever it is that is being produced out there in the world alongside whatever it is that you're trying to do, because whether or not you are in direct competition with people for their attention in that way, it's like you are in that kind of competition, and instead of letting it pass through you and acting as though you are like uh, a stone in a river and the water will flow around you, it's like just kind of go with that flow and see where it takes you, because that's where change, that's the motion and that's the spirit in which change and growth will happen. So
Oh, I love
yep.
that. Sorry,
I definitely, there's more to the quote, and I don't know if I quoted it right, but it's something in that vein. Yeah.
I feel like you did a good job paraphrasing. The meaning comes across. Well, thank you so
So,
much. I don't want
yeah.
to take up too much more of your time because I realize we already went over and I feel bad just taking
It's all
advantage.
good. It's all good. Yeah, I don't know. It's like again, this is all stuff that you end up having in your mind's eye for a long time, and then when the chance to actually talk about it comes up, it's like, okay, I'll run. You know, you pass me the baton, I will run. So I appreciate you asking such thoughtful questions too.
Not at all. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and just being so open with like all of your process and really taking the time to like thoroughly explain some of the concepts you discussed. Like if I think if I had read a written explanation of you talking about how you wrote your chapters in the structure of a song, I'm not sure I would have understood, but like being able to hear you talk
Hmm.
about it and like giving like examples and expanding on it real time, I I'm still like processing. I feel like it's got to percolate, but like that was just so fascinating. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And you are right. Like not all of this would translate as like, like an email, right?
Mm.
To use like the blankest possible form of communication. But I do think about this stuff a lot in a way where it's like for most people that make things, I do think it's like the iceberg situation where like all you really see is like that top like 5%, and you don't see like the other 95% of time, energy, thinking that goes on behind the scenes. So it feels good to stretch a little bit and be like, okay, we can talk. Yeah,
Well, thanks for showing us some of the underside of the iceberg and giving us an insight into the process.
of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great evening.
Yeah, you as well. Stay safe from the storm, maybe.
It's
I don't know
Florida.
how regular it is. Okay, all
It's
right.
it's not a hurricane. It's probably fine.
That's good. That's good. But yeah, enjoy the storm then. Enjoy writing it out. And thanks again for talking with me.
Not at all. Thank you so much. I can't wait to read the Love Club so much.
Enjoy.
Oh no, that makes
We'll
me
see.
nervous.
We'll see. No, no, no. I already told you what I'm drawing from, so you should set your expectations as you go in. But yeah, I do hope you enjoy. I hope it gets to you at some point. And yeah, I'll send you the playlist, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yes, absolutely send me the playlist and I'll be sure to share that with everyone after the interview. So be sure to check that out. But
Sick.
thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. So long.
So cool! Oh my god. I feel like we say how cool the author is after every single interview, but holy crap, that was mind blowing. That was mind blowing! I have never thought of writing in those terms before. That was, oh my god. I feel like I already said this, but I am definitely going to have to, like, process everything they said, because holy crap. Oh my gosh. Also, Wormtown, thank you so much for the raid. I'm so sorry. Since we were mid-interview, I didn't want to stop to say thank you because I didn't want to interrupt them. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was a really interesting take. I never thought about equating chapters to songs in a playlist, but it makes so much sense. Yeah, like when he was talking about like how each song contains like a whole universe and how he tried to translate that to each chapter, I don't even have the words to express right now. I feel like I'm just flailing. Which was also what I was doing live on interview. So I feel like that kind of works out, actually. Oh my god, that was just so cool. What an interesting like process and way of thinking about storytelling, because I've never heard anyone talk about writing like that or writing a book in those terms before. That was so cool. I've heard of using music for a mood, but that goes to another level entirely. For real, when he was saying that he had like 3 different playlists and each song corresponded to a chapter in the book and that he wrote to that, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Forget the freaking 3-act structure. Why didn't I learn this in school? That's because I feel like this is just a very like creative and so cool way of like doing writing. I feel like you also have to be very knowledgeable about music in order to write that way. I don't know though. Like I'm trying to imagine if I tried to do this. And I don't know if I could. Like just conceptually, I don't know if I could wrap my head around the idea enough to actually execute it. Like it's just so cool. It's such a different way of thinking in such like an incredible way. Oh my god. I'm gonna have to keep thinking about this. My mind is blown. I'm still reeling. I'm reeling. Um, I feel like I don't have the words to talk about how like incredible that was to hear their whole process and like the going through. I'm gonna have to say on this. Oh, also I do need to actually officially end the episode, I suppose. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Talk Story to Me. I certainly did. I have a lot to think on and figure out in this small brain of mine. But that was Lio Min. Please be sure to check out their book, Beating Heart Baby. It is so incredible. I cannot put into words like this book makes you feel so much as if you are the characters. It's just so genuine and real and full of passion and uncertainty and navigating in such a realistic, earnest way. Like none of the conflict feels like forced. It feels like genuinely as if you were with these characters living this life, and I recommend it to everyone. It's truly incredible. And be sure to check out the Love Club coming out, I believe in, is it September? August? Coming out in about a month, this fall, 2025. Be sure to check it out. That sounded so cool. I can't wait. I cannot wait. And yeah, that's all for this episode of Talk Story to Me. Hopefully, I will have more news soon on another guest. We shall see. Things have been very busy lately. Summer was a lot. It was a lot. So there may be a bit of a break between this episode and our next guest, but we shall see. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye. Okay. I think I did a professional-ish sounding ending there. That's always for the podcast episode, which I may or may not usually remember to do. I usually don't remember to do them. I've only just recently started remembering to do my podcast openings also, which has been a thing. Also, hi, Ark! saw you were mid-interview before I rated. I warned my chat we probably wouldn't get an immediate stream reaction. Thank you. I just feel so bad whenever anyone raids in, because Talk Story to me is the one time that I will not, like, vocally acknowledge, like, raids, just because I think some of our authors are very, like, modern and understanding of, like, Twitch and stream and everything, but I think a lot also wouldn't understand what was happening if I was suddenly like, oh, welcome in, raiders, thank you. Like, I think it would confuse them and then add unnecessary explanation to the interview and also just interrupt them mid whatever they were saying. So it is the one time I don't acknowledge raids, but I try to in chat. I try to. And I appreciate you. Thank you. This fall indeed! I'm so excited for the L.O.V.E Club. It sounded so freaking cool. Very different from Beating Heart Baby, but not like in a bad way, just in a this is such an interesting way to explore this concept. It's podcast, I understand. Thank you, Worm Talon. Thank you. I acknowledge you did, and I appreciate that, Ark. Thank you. You're doing the goodly mod things. And I appreciate that, and you. You even remembered my birthday was this week when I did not. God. I was so worried before the interview that I was just gonna, like, my brain was gonna shut off halfway through because the last 2 weeks have been so nonstop and exhausting. But luckily I don't think that happened, or if it did, I hope it didn't show too much. I did notice that I was really struggling to put words together. I think because I was also very conscious of, like, how eloquent they were. I was like, oh god, I want to sound smart and sophisticated and like I know what I'm doing. So I paused a lot more. I couldn't tell if that was a mix of tiredness or nerves. I got you. We got in chat anyway. Aw, thank you guys. I do think that will probably be the end of tonight's stream, just because I'm so tired. It's been a long 2 weeks, and this week's going to be a long one too. Tomorrow's kind of my only rest-ish day. I'm still catching up at work. I have a lot to get done at work, but I don't have anything in the evening. And Wednesday we will be doing the raffle stream. It's going to happen. I originally thought maybe I could do it tonight, but after getting in last night and being so tired and then being so busy today, I don't think I have it in me to do the raffle tonight. And I want it to be fun. I don't want it to be like, oh, okay, we'll just do it. So we will do that on Wednesday. That's how we'll start stream. I'm trying to decide if we will go back, because I still haven't finished Final Fantasy II, and I'm starting to forget the story, and I don't want to completely forget it. So I'm debating going back to Final Fantasy II or just continuing Elden Ring. Two very different game styles. But yeah, I haven't decided yet. I do want to finish 2. And I feel like we have a lot more of Elden Ring left, so I'm wondering if it would be better to go ahead and finish 2. But again, I haven't quite decided. We'll see what mood I'm in on Wednesday. But first, we will do the raffles. That will be the very first thing we do, so we will not run out of time, and I won't get too tired. ¿Por qué no los dos? Because I don't think I'm gonna have time to do the raffles, Final Fantasy II, and Elden Ring all in one stream. Quit job, stream full time. Oh, are you going to be paying my paycheck there, Ark? Are you going to be supplying me funds for highlight videos and art and commissions? Speaking of, I have some very exciting news on the highlight video front. I just received... Actually, I felt so bad I dropped the ball on this, actually. Before I left for Ohio, I received the first draft of our next highlight video. So I'm excited. We'll see what Wednesday mood brings. Exactly. Daddy Arg will become Sugar Daddy Arg. Oh no. Oh no. Is Daddy Arg not bad enough? God, that interview was so much fun. That was so fun. It really is like making me think about writing in an entirely new way, and I feel like I rarely say that about conversations I have. Man, that was that was just so good. But yeah, I will be back Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST. I do have a doctor's appointment in the evening after I get off at 5, but it should not run over. It shouldn't run over. But if it does have a late start, I'll post in the Discord as per usual. Trying to think, are there any other announcements? I don't think so. I think that's all. Do head on over to the Discord if you would like to participate in the charity reward discussions. I think we are currently discussing the new static emote and my profile picture for 1 month. And as a reminder, all Patreon content is free for the month of July. So 1 week has already passed. You got 3 more weeks of free content if you would like to check that out. We have some pretty fun series over there. I want to say you do have to be a member, but you can be a free member and still check out all the content for this month. Hello, Silas. Why are you on Mommy's monitor? Silas? Oh. But yeah, I will also be working on the other charity reward milestones and rewards. It might take me a bit of time. I'm hoping this weekend I can actually catch up on things. So it might take a little bit of time just because this week is still quite busy. But this weekend, I should have reached out to our top 10 donors and anyone else I need to get in touch with for any of the rewards. And Wednesday, we'll do our raffle stream. I will be attempting a new audio setup, so I will probably be requesting y'all's help for that on Wednesday. The last piece I was waiting on finally came in, so we'll probably be troubleshooting that a little bit on Wednesday. I'm hoping I can test it tomorrow, but I know how I am, so we'll see. But let's see who's online to raid. Miss Michelle, why aren't you live? I want to raid you. New audio. I know. With my new job, I decided I would love to attempt getting a good audio setup. So we'll see how it goes, because this is a lot of tech I've never used before, literally ever in my life, and I don't know what half of it does. So there's going to be a learning curve, but I think it will make for a better experience. Oh, I think there was a delay. Did you do that on purpose, Miss Michelle? Remember, everyone, we now have a new emote for Crowscuff. No! Why are you automatically assuming it'll go wrong? Why would you say that, Arg? Why would you say that? The silent stream era approaches! I mean, it'd be a lot easier on me. I'm just saying. I know you, Crow. Yeah, I know. But Audi Uno is currently live and playing Lies of P, so I will send you all on over to them as soon as Silas moves so I can see the buttons on my monitor that I need to press. Okay. All right. I am sending y'all on over to Audi Uno. I hope you have an excellent night. Like I said, we'll be back Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST. I am debating whether or not to do a Thursday stream. I think that'd be fun. We'll see. Oh, there's DLC spoilers? Uh-oh. I didn't know. I just saw Lies of P. Oh, New Game Plus. I've never played Lies of P, so I don't really know what this means, I'll be honest. I've heard a lot about it. It seemed difficult, so I was leery of trying. Or maybe not DLC? I don't, like I said, I don't really know anything about the game, so I don't know. It's what I was playing too. Oh, so did the DLC for Lies of P recently drop? Silas, you've got to move. I can't read chat. Oh, come here, baby. Lies of P is Pinocchio-themed Dark Souls. Also need to go for DLC. I haven't played it yet. Oh, dropped about a month ago. Yeah, I have no way of knowing if this is the DLC or not. Oh crap, the raid is gonna go through. Bye!